I was asking you on Thursday about his right hand.
Yeah.
Can I tell you what you told me? Word for word, you said, I felt when we stared down, I felt his right hand was twitching, which was a subtle tell for me. He is ready to unload that right hand, and I feel that could be a downfall for him. If he lets that right hand go, I will not be there. I will create traps and dead space inside that octagon, and I will walk him into that dead space. But all of a sudden, he will be in danger. How do you do that? How do you predict these
if
things?
you can see it here, and you have the courage enough to speak it, it will happen.
I had a dream. You know, like sometimes you lay down in bed and you visualize things. Lay down, I'd imagine playing for the Lakers, and I would imagine what the uniforms look like. I would imagine where we'd be playing, and you know, the smell of the arena and all sorts of stuff. And I would see myself, you know, getting hot, score 10 straight points. And then, but in a dream, like, why would you ever interrupt that? Like, you're not going to have a dream and be like, okay, and then he misses his next 6. Like, it's not going to happen. So you just keep dreaming and dreaming and dreaming. And before I go to sleep, I'm like at 120 points, you know? And so when you grow up, downloading that into your brain over and over and over. And then, you know, that summer, I made 1,000 shots a day. 1,000. And they weren't just shots. It were shots that you saw in that game.
Nobody helping right now defensively, so he'll take the 15-footer. Kobe's got 57.
They were specific shots. I mean, it was coming out of the corner, going to the pinch post, footwork in the post, coming off the screen. It was very specific. So when you download that into your system and you go out in the court and you're just executing things that you've done thousands of times before, and you have that dream, then that becomes possible.
Picture this. You're the senior motion designer at Rothko Media, and for the past 6 years, you've proven your competency. So, you've been given the task of preparing and pitching the presentation for a multi-year partnership with Warner Bros. Studios. The stakes are at an all-time high. You know that if you deliver this presentation successfully, it would change the trajectory of your entire career and the future of Rothko Media. If this deal goes through, you'll be promoted to the head of motion design for both Rothko Media and Warner Bros. Studios, along with a hefty $250,000 signing bonus. You have 1 hour and 34 slides to get through. You've read through the material several times. You've prepared for hours in meetings, ironing out the details of the agreement. Your team has prepared sample work for months prior. You've studied, you've done your homework, you feel like you're ready. That morning, you walk into the boardroom, you shake the executive's hands, and you walk right up to the head of the table to give your presentation. But then something strange happens. Your chest begins to tighten. Your breath is shallow, your heart is beating so fast that you're worried they might hear you. You start to speak, but your voice breaks. Your mouth is like a barren wasteland, devoid of any moisture. You're stumbling over your words, you're sweating profusely, and before you know it, you blew it. Now, we've all been there before. I know sure as hell that I have. So why does this happen? After all, you practiced, you prepared, you studied, you did your homework. But you did not account for the emotional and chemical reaction inside your body under those circumstances. See, you can understand something rationally. You can prepare, you can study, you can practice. But oftentimes, the game day circumstances will elicit such a different set of emotional and physiological reactions that all of our practice goes out the window. In today's video, I wanted to share with you one of the most interesting discoveries to come out of the field of sports psychology in the last 50 years. And that is the power of visualization, mental rehearsal. Visualization is a form of mental rehearsal where you sit down, you close your eyes, you get into a comfortable position, and while engaging as many of the senses as you can, you try to replicate the performance environment, whether that be writing an important exam, a firefighter running into a burning building, giving an important presentation, sports or musical performance, a first date, whatever it may be. You want to visualize yourself executing the skill or executing the performance to perfection. And it's not enough to simply see it. You have to feel it. What we are trying to do is induce the same emotional response. See, one of the most interesting things that has been proven through this kind of research and through the use of what are called fMRI scans is that when we visualize something, we are actually engaging the exact same neural pathways as actually doing the activity itself. Now, obviously, there will be some degrees of variability here based on your ability to visualize, meaning how accurately you can recreate that performance environment and how accurately you can recreate that emotional response. But if you recall, one of the key principles of neuroscience, neurons that fire together wire together. Now, simply stated, that means that when we visualize something and when we recreate something in the theater of our minds, we are actually training our brain. We are facilitating that neural pathway for it to occur once again in the future. How cool is that? I mean, I am literally saying that your brain does not know the difference between what is real and what is seen in imagination and what is tangible in the physical environment. In his best-selling book, Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell popularized this idea of the 10,000 hour rule, which essentially stated that in order to develop mastery in a complex skill or type of domain, we needed to put in 10,000 hours of deliberate practice. However, what he left out, and what a lot of people fail to understand, is that those 10,000 hours don't necessarily have to be physical practice. This is skeleton, one of those primitive Olympic sports that makes you wonder how it hasn't been banned yet, considering people do die doing it. The lights go green, you sprint at full speed before jumping headfirst into your sled, racing at speeds up to 95 miles per hour. Now, due to the speed, there is an immense pressure that is exerted on the body, and similar to Formula 1 drivers, skeleton racers are actually pulling up to 5 Gs of force, which makes their 9-pound heads feel more like 45 pounds. Due to the pressure and due to the health concerns that come from the pressure, skeleton racers can only do 2 practice runs per day. So that means they get 2 minutes of practice time per day. So if we're following the 10,000 hour rule, it would take them roughly 821 years in order to put in their 10,000 hours and develop mastery. So how do they do it? Visualization. See, for Olympic sledding athletes like bobsleigh, like luge, like skeleton, a large percentage of their practice is in fact mental. They must visualize a map of the track in their mind's eye, strategizing how they'll approach the turns, trying to feel the speed, the pressure, the forces they'll encounter. So yeah, mental practice works. Visualization has been scientifically proven to allow us to reproduce skills more quickly, accurately, and smoothly. It allows us to manage expectations and emotions more effectively, be more present in high-stakes environments, and have more confidence in our abilities. See, in the realm of sports, visualization is not an esoteric practice at all. Great athletes like Ronaldo, Muhammad Ali, Michael Jordan, Novak Djokovic, Michael Phelps, all of them practice visualization and mental practice. But for some reason, this research or the applications of this hasn't extended into everyday people. But if you look at the mechanism behind how this works, it's very clear that this applies to everyone. And in fact, I'm so confident in that I want to share with you some examples later in this video of how I've used it in my life. And I want to give you now, going into the next section of this video, some tips of how to apply this in your everyday life. Sam Ovens, who is a beloved internet entrepreneur and founder of School, has this amazing quote, which I love. It doesn't matter what you believe to be true, because with work, that will become true. See, your beliefs lead to your actions. Your actions lead to your results, and your results lead to feedback, which then loops back around and reinforces those beliefs. This is the cycle of personal evolution. And when you understand this in conjunction with the power of visualization, then what you've done is unlock the key to shifting your identity and truly changing any area of your life that you want to change. Because as I've stated previously, we don't achieve goals. We achieve characters. It is through the development of this new sense of self, through the embodiment of this new identity, that we can then go out into the world and accomplish our highest ideals. So don't strive for goals or outcomes. Strive to become he or she who can. Okay, so how does this actually work? So what we can do is create a mental image of the character that we wish to be, of the attributes that we wish to embody, of the skills that we wish to acquire. Maybe it's the Zen-like entrepreneur that can lock onto a task and work tirelessly with unwavering focus. Maybe it's the charismatic leader that can give presentations and influence people with extreme verbal dexterity and articulation. Maybe it's a charming and warm seducer, right? Maybe you want to get a girlfriend, get a wife, or something like that. Whatever it may be, or whether it's an excellent salesman that is persuasive, warm, and nurturing, so they can build good rapport with people and they don't come off as salesy, but they can close every single deal. Whatever it is, whether it's a skill, a personality trait, or an actual performance that you're visualizing, you must create that image. Try to get yourself in the emotional state of what that would feel like to embody that, and then practice. And I know that sounds too good to be true, and maybe even too simple to work, but I'd urge you to try it, because believe me, it is incredibly effective. And to prove it to you, I want to tell you some stories of mine. I used to work as a personal trainer at Gold's Gym, and in case you're unfamiliar with how these kind of roles work at a commercial gym, you're essentially a glorified sales rep. Now, it was the night before my first ever sales meetings, my first ever opportunity to sell a personal training package, and I'm fresh off a week of training, and I have 4 meetings scheduled back to back to back. Now, the way these meetings work, you have 1 hour, and in that hour, you have to build rapport with a client. You have to gather their goals, their exercise history. You have to perform a body scan on them. Then you have to do a 15-minute movement analysis where you show off your expertise, you show off your knowledge, and you identify their areas of weakness. Then you bring them back into the office, you recap everything that's been covered, and then you solicit the sale. You handle objections, close the deal. If all of that goes well and they say yes, you then have to sign the contract, collect payment, give them a fist bump, and wave them goodbye at the door. And you have to get all of that done under an hour, because I have another meeting right after that. Even for an experienced sales rep, this process can sometimes go over. It oftentimes does go over time. So having my first ever 4 meetings back to back to back was a pretty daunting task, and I was nervous, of course. But at this point in my life, I'd already been studying sports psychology for several years, and I'd already been meditating for a little over a year. So I knew the power of visualization. So the night before, I got into bed and I got into a meditative state. And I visualized the meetings going to perfection. I'm there, I'm meditating, and I pictured the gym. I pictured exactly what it looked like. I pictured the top 40 music playing in the background. I pictured the 15 to 20 step walk towards the personal training office. I pictured building rapport. I pictured the person clearly getting along with me right away. I pictured the anxiety that the client may feel walking into a Gold's Gym and there's all these meatheads just like lifting and grunting and flexing at pictures of Arnold on the wall. I pictured everything. I pictured the look of shock on the client's face when I would tell them the package is over $2,000. I pictured what I would say when they told me I need to think about it. I pictured the meeting going to perfection, and I try to get myself in the emotional state of what that would feel like. I did that once before bed, and I did it once again in the morning before going to work. That day, I closed 3 out of 4 sales on my first day ever. I nearly hit my commission for the entire month in a day. I'll give you another example. I've been told many times after delivering presentations in school or in the comment sections of my video that I have a natural speaking ability. But this couldn't be any further from the truth. There is nothing natural about it. New York, unique, New York, unique, New York. Red leather, yellow leather. See, my speaking ability, which I have long ways to go still in my opinion, is a result of deliberate practice. It's a result of mental rehearsal. And it's a result of affirmative self-talk. See, most people tend to have a terrible fixed mindset when it comes to these kind of things. How many times do you hear someone say, I'm not good at public speaking. I'm bad under pressure. I can't remember people's names. I'm not athletic. I'm not coordinated. I'm not attractive enough. I have a bad relationship with money. Money is evil, whatever it may be, right? We have a terrible relationship with the internal dialogue that we have for most of us. See, the truth is that most of us use visualization already. Most of us use these tools that sports psychologists are teaching high-level athletes, like self-talk, visualization. It's just that most of us, not only do we not use it deliberately, consciously towards a worthy ideal, but we actually use it unconsciously and destructively. We are affirming things that we don't want to believe about ourselves, but we are repeating them to ourselves over and over and over again. We're quick to visualize the worst case scenario. We're quick to visualize how everything could go wrong. See, we have what is called in psychology confirmation bias. Confirmation bias states that whatever we believe to be true, whatever thought patterns we have in our brain, subconsciously we will go out and seek information to prove that. So if you tell yourself, I can't remember people's names, something as simple as that, subconsciously, you will go to work to find evidence to prove that. If you tell yourself, I'm bad at public speaking, you will find evidence to prove that. But it works the opposite way around. If we choose to take control of our internal dialogue, if we choose to take control of our visualization and build a habit out of building a visualization practice, we can use this confirmation bias. We can use the power of our subconscious mind, our soul, whatever it is you want to call it, this form of higher intelligence that we have inside of us. It came pre-packaged into you. We can use that to our advantage. Let me share some of my secret sauce so I illustrate to you how this works. Because of my work here in front of a camera, I would like to continue on to do more public speaking opportunities. I would like to continue writing. It's a very creative field that I want to enter. It is very beneficial for me to know how to speak, to know how to articulate myself, to know how to write well. So this is a skill that I want to work on. So one of my affirmative self-talk patterns that I try to drill into my head pretty much day and night is the following. I am well-spoken, articulate, and highly charismatic. The spoken word is my sword, and I am a master at work. Now, that's a bold statement. And believe me, the first couple of times that I said that to myself, the first time I wrote that down on a piece of paper, I felt resistance. I felt the same sense of imposter syndrome that I'm sure you might worry that you might feel when you try something like this. But what happens is that I kept my mind open to that suggestion. I wrote it down. I started having that thought pattern. And two interesting things occur when you do something like this and you keep your mind open to the possibility that this kind of thing works. A, I consciously went out into the world and I tried to prove that. So what does that mean? Well, what does an articulate, well-spoken person do? They study. I started to read more. I started to analyze people who are articulate and well-spoken. I started to read more challenging books. I started to pay attention to podcasters, to speeches by Martin Luther King, Obama, like great speakers. And I practice every day in front of the camera. Secondly, subconsciously, confirmation bias at work, what I was talking to you earlier. Subconsciously, my mind was going to work to seek evidence to prove that statement. So perhaps it's a passing comment by a friend of mine of, hey, you did well in that presentation. Or perhaps is a look on someone's face where I can tell they're engaged by something that I'm saying. Or perhaps it's a quick 5-minute conversation about a pretty interesting topic and I'm able to articulate myself well. Something very simple that wouldn't have registered in conscious awareness previously, but because I've stated and I've planted that seed inside my brain, my subconscious mind is constantly scanning to find evidence to confirm that. So then this is where the cycle of personal evolution comes in that I showed you earlier. I have this belief that I'm trying to reinforce into myself. I act in accordance to that belief. I read, I study, I write, I speak every day. And then I have certain results that happen in my life. I have a presentation. Sometimes I stutter on camera, whatever. Sometimes it goes really well. And then I get feedback based on that action. My awareness is attuned to that reality where that is true. The reality where I am an articulate speaker. I'm looking for evidence to confirm that. So then I get feedback that comes back around and reinforces my belief. And when I reinforce my belief, it grows in conviction, and then I can replicate it over and over and over again. And you can do this for every single area of your life. Think about it. If you're someone that works out and you're in good shape, how else do you think this happened? You had a vision of yourself, a future version of yourself, where you saw yourself as healthy. You saw yourself with muscles. You could see yourself, yeah, I could see myself eating healthy, being consistent with my diet, going to bed at the right time, drinking the water, doing what I need to do. You saw that version of yourself. And when you told yourself, I am healthy, I am someone who works out, I am someone that's disciplined, you subconsciously go out throughout your day and you look for evidence to confirm that. That is the end of this video. But I want to leave you with 3 very tangible, practical things that you can apply in order to apply these principles that we've been discussing today. And I'm going to cover them briefly because each one of these, to be honest, merits its own discussion at length. The first is monitoring your self-talk, monitoring your internal dialogue, as I've just been saying this whole time. Be very careful with the thought patterns that you have. Be very careful with what you say outwardly to the world, to other people about yourself. Because as I've just explained to you, there's a mechanism inside your brain that is going to go out and try to confirm it, try to make it true. So be very selective with your words. It helps to write out, if you want to do this as a journaling practice, write out the limiting beliefs that you might have. Money is evil, I'm not attractive, I'm not athletic, I'm not this, I'm not that. Cross them out and write out the opposite statement. Repeat that to yourself. It might sound strange, you might have resistance, you might have imposter syndrome, but over time, you'll be amazed at what happens. The second thing, and this is very practical that you can probably try today. Whenever you are in a high stakes situation, whenever you are under stress, maybe it's at a meeting with a boss and you're about to ask for a raise, a job interview, a first date, maybe you're just talking to someone that you're intensely attracted to, you're about to public speak, take control of your breath. 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out. You don't have to do it exaggerated like I just did. I'm on camera and I hope you can hear me, but slow down your breathing significantly. The breath is the key to all of the stress responses that are going on in the body. So if you're not careful, when you're under stress, your body will naturally, it'll start picking up. Take conscious control of your breath, and it will help you navigate these sort of difficult situations, and it'll help you take control of your internal dialogue as well. And lastly, which is kind of the meta skill that goes into both of these, is developing a daily meditation practice. This has single-handedly completely changed the trajectory of my life, and I can say that confidently, even though I haven't really accomplished anything of greatness. Meditation is the most powerful thing that you can do. What you are doing with meditation is you are creating separation between your sense of self, what you think is you, and the thoughts, the chatter in your mind. So when something negative comes up, or when something positive comes up, you see it as separate. You don't see your thoughts as you. You just see them as out there. But you understand the power of thoughts. You understand the power of visualization. Therefore, you can start manipulating these thoughts and using them in a way that serves you. I hope this video was helpful. That's all I have for you today. I'll see you around.